to Gun Barrel Coffee. This is our day one of our blog, Coffee and Bullshit. A little bit of coffee, a whole lot of bullshit.
All right, so what's in the news today?
Well, one thing I saw that I thought was kind of interesting is part of Elon Musk's area of the world is that he posted a tweet basically saying that, like, wow, I can't believe Tesla is worth so much money, and then his entire stock crashed by like $100 that day.
Crashed his own stock price?
Yeah.
It's the second time now he's done that. When we went on Joe Rogan Experience, as soon as he got high, smoked a little bit, took 2 hits off a joint, crashed his price again.
Yeah.
Which is funny because most of the time he ends up battling against all the people who are shorting Tesla.
Yeah.
And then today he crashed his own stock price.
Yeah. But he's such an interesting person because, like, he almost looks kind of sociopathic when you see, like, some of the stuff he's doing. Like, if you just, like, see him do stuff. But also, like, if you imagine, just, like, the amount of stress of that man's life of, like, he has the highest, like, initial stock priced car company in history as, like, his side project. And, I don't know, he's, like, trying to save the world.
I think it's amazing. I think when you look at him, you can see he has kind of that characteristic I see of most geniuses where even when they're talking to somebody, they're unfocused. They're thinking of the next 12 things.
Yeah.
So he talks very stuttered. It's a lot of stops and pauses, but it's usually because he's thinking of 12 more things that he's not killing what's in front of him.
Yeah, there's this, like, lonely dissonance between him and the way everything else is.
Think of him, though, what I think is fascinating, I don't know if you guys watched The Men Who Built America.
Yeah.
So it was the Vanderbilts, right? It was Edison, J.P. Morgan, Ford, all those guys. So, what's their history? Like, I didn't really realize how much together those guys were, right? In history, but
all working together,
right, they're all at the same time. They're all at the same time, right? So I was kind of thinking about it. The people at the time who lived through that probably didn't recognize what those guys were doing, what they were accomplishing. We're living through that same time right now. 50 years from now, you're going to see the second generation of the men who built America, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. It's all happening again. And they're all at the same time, which is so weird and so coincidental that it's happening. I can't believe it's happening again. I didn't really realize until a couple weeks ago. I said, these guys are all together. These 7, 8 guys are advancing our whole society again by a huge amount, just like the original group did.
Maybe someday we'll have warp drive.
Yeah. Do you guys think it's more like those men kind of push that into the future, or do you think it was like they saw these opportunities because, like, a lot of, like, Jeff Bezos and everyone, they're all coming out with, like, the invention of the internet, which is some, like, insane thing that humans still, I don't think, fully comprehend. And that was during the Industrial Revolution when, like, it was kind of the same thing of just, like, huge growths of, like, human opportunity that most people just don't see. And do you think it's just, like, they were the people smart enough to see that opportunity and actually, like, execute on it?
I think the weird thing I look at is I think they had different motivation back then versus the people now. I think back then it was greed and take over the world.
Yeah.
Now I think there's much more humanitarian thought behind it, right?
In some of them.
Right.
In some of them. I mean, there's still greed and...
Sure.
Yeah.
I think the initial thought, though, wasn't I want to become the youngest billionaire.
Yeah.
Right when Zuckerberg built it, he became the youngest billionaire, but I think part of it was, one, it was a little bit of his own ego. He had to build something better than everybody else, but I think, too, it was like, hey, we connect all these people. This is bigger than what I really know what it is.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, yeah, it started off as a dating app, pretty much.
Yeah.
Finding who's the best-looking girls on campus.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't know all the backstory behind everybody's motivation now. Like, those guys back then, the men who built America, you saw, they did a lot of dirty stuff and a lot of dirty politics to get to where they were. I mean, I never knew they all got together in cahoots to elect and make a president.
Yeah.
I was blown away by that. Like, I didn't realize they all got together. So, and then the one, Vanderbilt used the Pinkertons when the railroad guys were striking.
That was Carnegie.
Or Carnegie. And just gunned them down.
They just kill everyone.
The lawless sources to go gun down protesters.
Because he could, like, hire enough people where he did outgun, like, the U.S. military for, like, a day. Mm-hmm. And took care of all of his problems.
So I wonder if that's any of the scare now by our own government.
Yeah.
That the richest man in the world could go build his own army.
Yeah.
Think about any other country, if he was set up like that, he could basically become the government.
Yeah.
In another country by hiring his own private army.
Yeah.
To go take over the government. I think that's probably how most coups happen in other countries. Is the richest guy who can afford the army.
Yeah.
Becomes the leader.
Yeah. Oh yeah, your own private security, your own private army.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool how or not cool, but, like, terrifying how, like, if you really think about, like, if Facebook decided I mean, we don't know what they're actually doing, but like if they fully decided to like full tilt ruin everything for everyone, Facebook and Google could like end the world in a day. Like
it's crazy how much power these you don't think
yeah,
about this.
and that's the thing is like they're more powerful than any government that's ever existed, really.
Well,
Almost.
They
like,
do control your rights.
And
yeah.
it wasn't in, so think
Try
about
to.
and they control information and like.
well,
Yeah.
Facebook has more political sway and power than anybody in the past. There used to be newspapers in the past,
Yeah.
but they were all divided, right? They all kind of had themselves, but Facebook is more powerful than the
Yeah.
most top powerful 5 newspapers back in the 1940s and 50s.
Yeah.
So it's unbelievable what political clout they really have by swaying the message of what's out there.
Yeah, and there's
yeah.
not like this barrier of entry to like you don't need to have $1 million to start a TV show. You don't need to have all this stuff to get in a newspaper. It's like, I mean, we're doing it right now. We can just for free put stuff out where everyone can see it,
Correct.
and that creates this really cool ecosystem.
I wonder if that's a thing that this generation now will realize is that more than ever, one person has a voice.
Yeah.
So growing up in the 70s and 80s, even the simple thing is like where a company would cheat you out of something or screw you over. They would treat you like dirt. There was no customer service back then. It's like, too bad for you. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
You have no voice. You couldn't do anything to complain. Now one person can go against a company and make a complaint to 1 million people. And now that it has sway. Now one person has sway and they're not so overran by corporations where they used to be even 20 years ago. To have one person have that much of a voice is something just unbelievable that I didn't think I would see happen.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, we get that stuff all the time here on ours. You know, people want to talk shit about us or whatever it is about the company. You know what? It is what it is. You have your Second or First Amendment to say what you want to say.
Yeah. I think the amount of opportunity that kind of this new era has given, especially me as an individual, like I was like 5 when the first iPad came out, so I'm very much like this is what kind of where I grew up. It was with this insane amount of opportunity, and I'm super grateful for that because like when in any point in history someone like me been able to come here and do stuff like this, and that's never.
Yeah, could you imagine trying to do that back in the 80s with the Atari 2600?
But you would have needed a recording studio, a bunch of
Yeah.
money, then how would you get it out to the world?
Yeah, and how
Yeah.
does a 16-year-old ever even get to that opportunity in the first place?
It's an amazing change, and it's been honestly a very short period of time.
Yeah, it's been what, like 2 decades?
Yeah, I mean, we grew up without the internet.
Yeah.
And the first computer we had in my house, I wasn't until I was in college that we actually had a computer in the home. And then that was a dial-up connection. It was, you had to use AOL. It took 20 minutes to bring up a picture on the internet. And I honestly said to myself one time, and people, I'm like, at the time you had to pay for a package online. It was like $20 a month for 3 hours. Then you had to pay more for 5. And I said, who's ever going to use this thing more than 3 hours a month? There's nothing to do on here. And now,
That's where half the world is.
right now I can't imagine living a day without the internet. It's horrible when you do have to. I think about how many hours a day I'm on the internet all day long. We use it in the business every day for Square, for all of our communication with our clients, for all of our orders. It's become so important. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you imagine if it ever crashed?
Yeah.
If it ever
Yeah.
goes away?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to horse and buggies.
Yeah, my landscaper cut my internet connection a week ago
Yeah.
while I was working from home during the COVID thing. So there went my phone, there went my computer, there went my email. So I had a hotspot phone. Like, thank God I had that as a backup. But just for the day and a half I had, without it, it was miserable. No Netflix, no TV. So that short period of time is amazing how reliant we became on it. From don't even know what it is to all of a sudden I can't live without it.
Well, yeah, that'd be almost the same thing without having the TV with cable, right? There's
Yeah.
only so much you can watch, but there's only so many channels you watch anyway.
Yeah.
It's credible. So I'm always anxious to see if this is what happened in the 20-year span of us growing up. What's the next 20 going to be?
Yeah.
The
Alien technology.
The industrial revolution's happened quicker than it did 50, 100 years ago. Now each one's going to keep going quicker. I mean, Elon Musk talking about they launched the rest of the satellites so now the whole planet's going to have internet no matter where you're at.
Yeah, like he's literally an individual that like when the government didn't step up where he wanted, he just like literally went and saved the world. And I mean, when he was like 20, he made PayPal, and that was where he got his initial funds. I don't know. He's an interesting guy.
Yeah. I just, like I said, I'm anxious to see how much more these group of guys come up with and push us forward.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing that this very small group has accomplished so much.
Yeah.
Another thing is, I thought the other thing I couldn't believe the other day is the 10th Amendment's going to finally really get put to the test. So with the federal government now saying you have to follow shelter-in-place orders, the 10th Amendment kind of guarantees the state's rights that the federal government won't interfere. And so now Governor Cuomo the other day came out speaking against it and trying to remind Trump that there's a 10th Amendment, states have rights, you can't, this is not a dictatorship. So I think you're going to see more battles over the next month or two of states pushing back.
Yeah.
We saw in the past with gun rights. In California, it helped the state, in some states it helped push back. There was a battle there, but I think lifting the quarantine is going to be a big thing versus the federal government.
Yeah.
Which we haven't really in our lifetime seen where the states battle the federal government.
Yeah. And it's such a weird thing, too, just like climate-wise, to battle like governments with.
State and federal, yeah.
I mean, it's amazing we live in a place, though. This is part of what our veterans fought for, is that you have rights and you can fight back against your federal government.
Yeah.
Almost, 80% of the rest of the world, there is no fighting back against the government. You just go to jail or you get killed.
Yeah.
So here in this country, you can stand right on the lawn of the White House and protest and complain. So I think that's a reminder every once in a while when people see that how wonderful the place you live in, because people fought for the rights in the Constitution that's there to protect it.
Yeah.
Other news. How about Canada? About them taking away their rights to bear arms.
I think the craziest thing is that the Prime Minister was able to make a summary judgment.
Yeah.
The Council couldn't pass it, and the Prime Minister just stepped up and said, okay, that's it. All assault weapons are banned.
Yeah.
They don't have the same Constitution as we do here in America.
Yeah. That's where I think, I don't know, to me it's interesting because, again, I grew up in, like, a different time. So, like, from my point of view, I think I definitely kind of default to a more pro-choice in all, like, matters, just because I value the freedom of the individual a lot. And I think that it is kind of almost, like, foreboding, and I think of push more towards the negative the more and more, especially in Canada, I've noticed, as a country, like, crazy restrictive governments can get. Where, like, they passed a couple years ago, like, Bill C-16, where, like, you were legally forced to use certain pronouns when addressing people.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, that was something I really liked Dr. Jordan Peterson's work against it, which I feel so bad for that guy, because he got really, like, misconstrued by a lot of media because of that. But I think that stuff like that, I think, is never a good thing. And maybe that particular law isn't the worst in the world, but just kind of where that leads down the line.
I think it's funny is that people here have the it can't happen here mentality.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of people are okay with ridding us of the Second Amendment. Once they see one gun as all guns are bad, ban them all, and they say it doesn't apply to this type of weapon, it doesn't apply to that type of weapon. When they wrote that, their concern was not the type of weapon. What made it come about was John Adams. We started fighting back against the British. He was blown away that we had no guns to fight with. He couldn't believe that we let ourselves get into that position, right? It's the being unprepared, not thinking ahead. Why would we need guns? Why would we need a militia?
Yeah.
So what they realized then is, like, this can never happen again. It wasn't about arming systems. It wasn't about what type of weapon they have. It was, if there's ever a situation where we need to fight back against the government, whether it be our own or foreign, the citizens have to be able to stand up and fight. They can't be unarmed, unready, unprepared. So I was thinking, how we initially fought the British was stealing guns.
Yeah.
There's small groups of militia started stealing guns back from British or soldiers they took over, and stealing guns back to how we fought the war. So the whole intent was to not let that happen again.
Yeah.
Now people believe that there's no tyrannical government, it can never happen here. But you see,
some of the farmers did have their own guns.
Well, yeah.
Right.
But not at the scale to...
Right.
No,
they didn't have the ammunition, they didn't have the powder, they didn't have the backups ready to go. They had, have a gun so I can go out and do a little bit of hunting now and then, but I'm not ready to go fight a war with it.
Yeah.
So it was the unpreparedness. So again, it's Canada, who we also look at as, like, this great democratic country. It's very laid back. The Prime Minister decided that's it. It made it's basically a tyrannical rule that it wasn't the voice of the people. It was government decided this is what it is.
Yeah.
So if it can happen in Canada, I think it can certainly happen here. And just like the president now saying, you must follow shelter in place or stay at home.
Yeah.
that's pretty. It's getting, agree with it or not, whether or not it makes sense, whether or not it keeps people safe, it's getting pretty close to martial law.
Yeah.
I think people are mad about the protesters, but I think that what they're protesting is not that I can't go out. It's that you're getting close to martial law. So you have to have a voice to say, hey, take a step back. You can't do this. You have to go by rights. We're willing to do what makes sense to keep people safe, but you can't just make a blanket policy that tells us what we have to do.
Yeah.
That's against the Constitution, what everybody kind of felt for.
Yeah.
So, Bern, what coffee are you drinking?
This is the Little Rocket Man, the medium roast espresso.
All right.
Little Rocket Man is a great espresso blend. I think it's my favorite. It makes good cold brew too.
Yep.
And mocha pot.
I like the espresso
The
because
mocha pots.
it has a little more flavor than just our regular medium, so it's always got the little extra backside flavor, which makes it really good.
Yeah.
And it's always a good kind of surprising change.
Yeah. I think that's an underestimated part of the flavor profile is the backside of it and like what happens at the tail end, because like that initial sip I think is like it's very important, but it's after that and like how does it sit in your mouth, because if it leaves a bad taste that kind of puts it on a bad note no matter how good it was at first.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't want it to taste nasty and
Yeah.
I think that's when I started realizing
acidic.
the difference in our coffee versus drinking. Every once in a while I get stuck in a position where I have to drink bad coffee, just don't have it. We're on the road or something, don't have our coffee with us. You have to stop at a gas station and you take that sip. Thereafter, you're like, oh, you taste that backside. It leaves that horrible taste in your mouth that you can't get rid of. And you're like, oh, this is why our coffee's so much better. And the smoothness and without the bitterness and the acid that those other coffees have.
Yeah. That's what I really love about, I'm really enjoying that rum coffee that I got from you guys. I'm already like halfway through that. But,
with no alcohol.
yeah, it's not alcoholic. But it is, I just really like the way that other alcohol-flavored coffees I've had is like, it just adds such a cool profile to the coffee, and it's a very unique taste that like you can't really get from just regular roasting.
Yeah, I wish the process didn't take as long.
Yeah.
But 3 months on average to make that, so it comes out limited, and then people always, as soon as we sell out of it, people always complain that we don't have more.
Yeah.
So I mean, we make it as fast as we can, but it's a
There's
unique
only
way.
so
It took a lot of experimenting to figure out how to make it well, but it comes out
I mean,
really good.
Yeah.
Especially when we get the brandy one out, and June we'll have the bourbon.
Yeah.
So that'd be a good one.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get quite a few bags. We only do small batches.
It's a nice change in difference, especially if you like. Sometimes I like the flavor of alcohol, but don't want to drink.
Yeah.
And so I really like at night the 1 or 2 cups before end of the night. That's great to have it. It's kind of like an after dinner drink almost.
Yeah.
So that makes it really good.
That's one thing I was curious about is you guys do have 2 different CBD infused coffees.
Mm-hmm.
So what are like the benefits of that versus regular coffee, and why is that worth the premium?
So from the studies that are going on out there, I think the big thing right now is people are realizing how bad opioid addiction is.
Yeah.
Right? So what they're finding, the properties of CBD, taking care of a lot of the same problems, the pains, aches, stress, anxiety, same things we're over-medicating everybody for. So it's a nicer way to do it. Be more in control of what your own meds are, and use what you need with having the relaxation of it without, I think, the other downside and down effects of other drugs, right? There's always that, I feel like I'm drugged, coming down, the highs, the lows. With CBD, it's more even keel, and I think just more pleasant overall.
Yeah.
So, and what we over-infuse our coffees and oversaturate with CBD so that clients are actually getting a great value out of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we charge $50 a bag for those. That's 1,200 milligrams of CBD. If you look at CBD prices anywhere else, so we're a third of what you could buy it out there for on the street.
And we are using an isolate, so
Yeah.
You don't have that 0.003% of THC in it, so
Yeah.
pretty safe to use.
Yeah. So it just is kind of like there's already a ridiculous amount of health benefits to black coffee, and just kind of adds more.
Yeah, it does.
What's funny, the most feedback we get from is a lot of nurses who are like, God, I wish I could use CBD myself.
Yeah.
It's like I love it so much better. The benefits are so much better. They can't use it themselves because of drug testing. They can't have any THC whatsoever if it's like a millionth of a part, right? So it's crazy, but it's just the world's not educated yet about it, the benefits. So
Yeah.
It's almost the same thing for veterans not being able to use CBD because, it's against federal regulations, right? And we're all federal employed still to a point.
Yeah.
With the benefits coming out every day, hopefully, just a little more time before the education gets around and they can kind of release it up and let people use it. I think part of it too is a battle against the drug companies.
Yeah.
There's billions of dollars in opioid drugs, and if you push them out of the market, that's going to be a problem. They have more powerful lobbyists right now than the CBD companies out there do.
Yeah. That is another interesting thing, back to how we were talking about the way different media platforms affect things in social media, is that it is, I think, really interesting, the fact that it almost gives a little less weight to those lobbyists, not as far as like regulation, but as far as the way kind of the free part of our market works, is that because I think people are significantly more educated now on CBD and stuff like that, compared to when all the media was controlled by those pharmaceutical companies, is that a lot of people are making like the choice themselves to go out and buy those products. So it is almost like every time some guy in Colorado is buying his CBD oil, or you're buying your CBD coffee, it's almost kind of like giving a little vote towards more natural remedies.
I like that concept. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Again, though, that's part of education. It's amazing, right? One person can educate you, right?
Yeah.
Now has a voice, can get out there and educate past what
Yeah.
the pharmaceutical companies and lobbyists and newspapers want to put out there is what the truth is.
Yeah.
So now you can find your source anywhere out there.
Yeah.
So, if you're interested in CBD, go read more about it. The studies that come out every day are pretty amazing, what they're finding new uses for it. Both my kids are ADHD, ADD, and so I'd love to be using it with them. Can't right now, but when I see the amount of medications and drugs they take, the doctors still don't know. So it's all experimenting, and you're experimenting on kids who are young, who are growing and developing, and you're sticking a bunch of narcotics in them, up and down, giving them highs and lows, which is crazy. You're basically teaching your kids to have a drug addiction at a young age.
Yeah, or I have a friend with really bad, like ADHD or ADD, and that's something that I've noticed for them with like their medications is it's definitely like they need them to a point, but also it's like I know that's something they're kind of like they are cautious of, that of like the negatives of the fact that they have to have it when they know that there's better options. But even a lot of doctors know that like it's not the best thing, but they're all regulated by companies that their hands are almost tied.
Well, you can tell there's some corruption there because
Yeah.
one doctor to another will recommend a different, even might be the same exact, close to the same exact medication, but as we move doctors with our as insurance has changed, my daughter's, we don't want you to take that medicine. I want you to take this medicine. Well, what's this one? Well, it's basically the same thing as that, but it's just a different name. This is the other version of some other company made because the patent ran out on that. So, but this is the one I get.
Paid for.
Right, this is what I get paid to
Yeah.
push, so I need you not on this one. So I'm like, well, what if it doesn't matter? Are you worried about her care or health, or are you worried about pushing your drugs that you're being compensated for?
Yeah.
So I'd rather my kids, we put them all on CBD and figure out how to deal with it because it's shown really effective in dealing with some of those things.
Yeah.
So it's learning and getting to that point.
Yeah.
So like I said, again, as education becomes more prominent, I think you'll see more and more proliferation.
Yeah. Anything that's caught your eye in the last week or block of time?
Hey, just trying to read the news about Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
See what's going on with him. See if he's alive or dead.
So what's your
Who
bet?
knows?
What's your vote? Dead or alive?
I'm hoping dead, but his sister would probably be a much worse candidate too.
It's the devil you know process, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
I think that's sometimes why we leave some people in power is that it's the devil we know, who we have connections with, who we have an idea of what they're going to do, what their sources are, and you kind of open up Pandora's box and you let the next one in.
Yeah. That's where a lot of people they'd rather have someone who's a complete garbage person, but at least they know. So it's not like some weird surprise. Where I know that that's something that I've kind of seen with even the current president is that the things about him that are controversial, at least everyone knows. So it's people almost care less than if it's some weird he's too clean.
Right. But there's some measure of respect you can have for someone who's just, this is who I am and I'm not apologizing for it, right? So you're more apt to believe that person because you're right, they don't hide those things.
Yeah.
Right? So You're right. I'd rather have somebody who's completely upfront, open about everything, so I believe they're honest, rather than the person who's hiding.
Yeah.
They're evil.
Well, yeah, I mean, if he is dead, then he's dead, but they don't say it.
No, this,
They're in North
no,
Korea,
this
they
week,
control the media and everything.
2 days ago, they said he's still alive, and made a public appearance, but they have no photographic or video
Yeah.
evidence.
Right.
But they just said he made a public appearance.
Who knows?
And China's being all quiet about it.
I think it's kind of it's almost a anthropological experiment, getting to see people who are shut off from the outside world, who lack education. It's scary to believe that people can believe what they believe.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how many actually believe that this is a leader sent down by God. This is he's infallible. I don't know if people believe that, or if they just believe, they say they believe it because they're scared.
Well,
They live
yeah.
in fear, or if they really do. If they really do, it's even more interesting to believe that as humans,
Been brainwashed for almost
Right.
60 years.
you can be
so-
convinced to believe that level of ridiculousness, and there's no holds barred to it. And
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think it'll be amazing to ever see if we can open up that country.
Yeah.
And
How that integration would play out.
I think people will be blown away
Yeah.
when they get access to the internet and can actually see everything, and then see what
Yeah.
the world's really about. And then if they go back and see what people thought of them during this time, under that rule.
Yeah.
People are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that the rest of the world's not like us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That,
Well, it must be like East Germany and West Germany, you know, when the wall came down and they opened up and East Germans got to see what the West was living, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you know, they became one country and
Yeah.
more powerful and together than separate. And
Yeah.
so
probably the same way could happen with North and South Korea.
think about it though, so the one benefit the East Germans had, right, is they knew what life was before the wall went up.
Correct.
They had outside. So that's why I think so many have fought to go over the wall and died trying to get over the wall and escape. Well, you don't see as much of that in North Korea. You see it every once in a while. It's big news, right? When one person makes a break for it, it's huge news.
Yeah.
But if everybody knew what life was like before without this, I think you'd see more, there'd be more revolt.
Yeah.
But they've been so long in that situation. You're right. That's gone on for
Yeah.
generations. The
Yeah.
new generation says there's no point. There's no
Yeah.
point because it's the same over there on that side of the fence as it is here.
Yeah.
Oh,
But that's-
if the leader comes, you better make sure you clap, or
Yeah.
you'll
That
probably get
there's
a bullet
this
to the back of the head.
Yeah, there's this study done where it took elephants, because when elephants are used in like the Middle East to like clear trees and stuff, they're led by like surprisingly thin ropes, because from the time they're like little kids, like little baby elephants, it's this tiny rope. So then by the time they grow up, they've been like, oh, I can't break the rope, when they could literally just take everyone holding them down with them and leave. But they're so like, I can't break the rope.
Yep.
And I think that plays out in a lot of interesting ways, even in like our society that's a lot more aware and free, but like we all have our different little ropes.
That's a really interesting.
Yeah,
it's a
it
very
is.
it's a very interesting philosophical perspective. It's almost kind of like the class thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm stuck in this class, so I will always be here because I have this. The ropes are invisible, but they feel it. People
Yeah.
still feel that they're there and they react against them.
Yeah.
Right, in the lower class, middle class, rich class,
Yeah.
that's where I'll be forever, in the lower middle
Yeah.
class. And the more you try to work your way out of it, the more you take
Yeah.
one step forward, two steps back.
And it's weird, that those ropes work in both directions.
Yeah.
It seems kids who are raised in wealthy families tend to be wealthy.
Yeah.
Whether it's because they push to a higher level, I don't know, because they're accustomed to having these certain level of things, so they believe
Yeah.
that that's what they have to have. So they know that I have to go to this school, get this degree, to have
Yeah.
this job, to push to this level, to
And they have all
those
the
same
connections there.
right.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're used to average, you strive to get back to average,
Yeah.
and that's good. And you maybe go a little bit above it, but
Yeah.
most people on average are getting back to their same level of comfort they
Yeah.
enjoyed growing up.
Well, yeah, when you have kids, you're trying to make their life better so they can climb out of the lower class or middle class and be the next step up, right?
Yeah.
It's I take kids and tell them to go to college, but
Yeah.
college isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
Trade schools are always good.
Right.
And
Yeah.
That's turned out to be a double-edged sword for me. Raising my kids, like I want them to have everything I didn't have, right? Have better,
Yeah.
have easier life. I grew
Right.
up from the time I was 5 working in a family business every weekend all my life.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want my kids to have to do that. I want them to enjoy their childhood.
Yeah.
But now I realize my kids have never worked for a thing in their life.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to, but I almost hate them for it, that they appreciate nothing.
Yeah.
Even chores are like, to them that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
And I look at them, I'm like, I hate that they don't know it, but I'm glad that they don't have to. But I hate myself for putting them in a position where their life is so easy and so cake that they don't get it and they don't respect anything they have.
Yeah, and that's such a hard thing to teach, like, that kind of, like, that, like, need to hustle, need to grind, need to work, need to, like, that kind of stuff is so hard to teach someone who, like, there is a certain part of just, like, early childhood or DNA type thing to it, where I think it is such, like, nobody's ever really figured that out, I think, on how to necessarily teach that. I think
it's weird that there's a couple different, I mean, last year we worked 258 days in a row before we had a day off.
Yeah.
And I part of it is just passionate about it. I love getting up, love going out and seeing people like on weekends, but we're here working during the week. I work in a full-time job. So it was initially started, so I was working a full-time job, plus we're doing this plus. So now still doing that, but I think to most people that seems weird, like, that you could do that.
Yeah.
It never, the funny thing is going through it, didn't realize it until we sat down one time and I think we lost a show or something happened, we lost a show. And I was sitting down going back through records, I just had time to go back through and start doing books. And just realizing, counting back, like, looking at the calendar, like, oh my God, we haven't taken a day off in 258 days. Yeah. But it was just natural. It never felt like, oh, I can't, never counted the days. We weren't like, oh, I can't believe, never thought about when we're going to have a day off. We're just doing it. Yeah. My kids can't work 2 days, 2 hours in a row.
Yeah.
That's my fault, right? Now it's my fault that I made those kids have that mentality.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they don't have to feel like the worker bee drone, just go put their head down and run. At the same time, I wish they had some work ethic.
Yeah. That's where I think it's interesting for me, because, like, I worked for, like, my grandpa, we made these drones out of old propane tanks, and I worked for him, like, every weekend. We'd get up at 4, get back at, like, 10, from the time I was, like, 6 to, like, a year ago. But then that's something, like, I did by choice. Like, I didn't have to do it, and that's where I think, for me, it's weird, because, like, I had every opportunity to not do it, and there's been, like, times where I've taken months and not done anything, but I think that's where I'm trying to figure out, like, why am I like that? And I think there's just, like, this part of me that just is very, like, switched on, chip on my shoulder, trying to do something, which is kind of why I think, the only 16-year-old who's doing this. But
oh, that's true, though. I think, I mean, I hate, we grew up in a generation where you only got a trophy if you won.
Yeah.
I cannot stand that everybody gets a trophy.
I hate that.
And I think it's good now. I've seen the next generation. So it seems the generation behind me was that generation. Yeah. It seems now the next generation, but that doesn't like that.
Yeah, I know. No one I know liked getting those because, like, you feel cheap about it because I knew I was not good enough at soccer to have a medal, but I still had one, and it makes it feel so cheap to all the, like, people who actually were good. And I think that work ethic is, like, it's one thing you can control, and it's one thing that controls a lot. Where the amount of work, there's, like, other factors like talent and opportunity and whatever, but, like, at the end of the day, I believe that, like, enough work makes up for a lot of differences in other spots.
Yes, and then there's always going to be winners and losers.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be your first place, second place, third place.
Yeah.
Kids, adults, doesn't matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't give a Super Bowl trophy to everybody who goes to the Super Bowl. They just the one team that wins.
Yeah.
The World Series goes to one team. Whatever they do in soccer, what's that, the World Cup, to one team, you know?
Yeah, and people win at different things in different areas. Like, I am a
Everybody's got a
complete
different
loser at chemistry. I am good at, like, business-oriented stuff, and I'm good at English and, like, whatever. But I suck at chemistry. But I'm not going to get all beat up like, oh, man.
No.
I wish I had an A. I know I definitely should not have an A in chemistry.
Trust me, you would have seen my grades.
I mean, the funny thing is, if you don't let people fail or know there was a failure point, what's the reason to work hard?
Right.
Yeah.
What's the reason to ever go accomplish things that normal people wouldn't accomplish every day?
Yeah, and it makes people really insecure. Like, that's something that I've noticed in kids my age, is that they're really insecure about everything because they have no belief in themselves to do stuff. Because, like, they've never had to pay for stuff, or they've never worked, or they've never done stuff. And so they're all thinking, like, oh, I'm going to college now, or I'm getting my first job, or whatever. And they're like, I don't know if I can actually do anything, or I don't know if I can actually, like, support myself. And so they're super insecure about all this, and then they start fronting by, like, buying cool stuff on credit cards to look cool on Instagram, like they have it together, and then they're super in debt and have nowhere to go, and it's like
That's another fault of
yeah.
the social media life, right? Putting everything on social media, your whole life story, blah blah blah. You know, some stuff is just meant to be
build the facade.
Private.
Build a facade,
build
right?
a fake facade on
It's
some
all
people.
facade now. You know what's weird though? So growing up like I did, I kind of always regretted like when my friends would be going out to do stuff and I had to go to work. But at the end of the day, what I realized, it taught me that no matter what situation I get into, I will survive.
Yeah.
There's a way to get through it. There's a way to survive. I'll climb back out. Doesn't matter how bad it gets. So I think that's been one of the great lessons of my life is that I can get through it no matter what.
Yeah.
I'll figure out a way to survive. I'll scratch, claw my way to the top no matter what. I'll get out of the hole and I'll figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, like as long as you're not dead, you still got something to do.
Right. I've never been the sit in a corner and cry person.
Yeah.
And everything's over. Never been that. So I can't stand that mentality either.
I mean, he worked with his parents doing all that stuff with the lamps and the fruit and stuff like that. I was delivering newspapers. You know.
Kids don't even deliver newspapers anymore.
Yeah. What's a newspaper?
Well, that's funny, but no, the only newspaper that comes in my neighborhood is a guy who comes by at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
It's a guy.
He's
He's about mid-40, in his car, throws it out the window at the end of the driveway. When I was a kid, helped my friend with the paper routes. If you didn't put the paper at the right door, sometimes they want it at the back door, sometimes they want it at the front door. If you didn't put the paper at the right door, they would instantly call the paper and complain about you.
Yeah.
And then there was twice, like I helped them put the wrong. We had to go back that same day and go fix it.
Yeah.
So what a difference now! Like paperhead was like on their door. Now the guy just drives by and throws it out. If it's raining, the paper's destroyed.
And he doesn't have to collect the money or nothing.
No,
it
he
used to
doesn't
be
collect the money.
you used to have to collect the money. You had to write a little receipt to the guy. He gives you the check or whatever.
You always give the paper guy a tip, right?
And you know you're expecting a tip, like, hey, you know, I delivered your paper that you like, and hopefully you give me a tip. But there was some
impersonal.
Yeah.
Completely impersonal throwing it at
you learned how to talk to people back then, and you know everything's internet here. I'm gonna text you even though you're sitting 2 feet away from me.
Yeah.
But
That's what I loved about working so much like floor sales and stuff at all these different like we did a lot of like the arts, crafts, like flea market shows.
Yeah.
And I was always like standing there playing the drums and making all the sales and stuff. And it's something that like I learned to get good at. But honestly, I'm realizing in the last like 6 months more than ever how much that's actually carried over of like being able to have interactions with people and being able to there's so many like cool life lessons and things you take away from doing work that are I think
talking to people. That's I mean, how many times we've done shows and just see people just sitting in their booth, just twiddling their thumbs or on their thing, don't even look up at anybody, and people are going.
We look at people as like, why are you sitting at the back of your booth?
Yeah.
Get up and talk to people. Why would anybody want to come buy anything from you?
Yeah.
I mean, we're sitting there hollering at people like, hey, come try some Gun Barrel coffee. Get over here, you know.
We bark the whole show. We're out there.
Free samples.
But that's what makes it fun is interacting with people.
Yeah, that's what I love about it.
Part of what's made this business great is who comes and talk to us are veterans, family members of veterans who come and tell us their stories, share their stories they've been. Some of the most amazing things, there's experiences you get to have in the military that you can't have anywhere else in life.
Yeah.
And so you get
even
to hear
with
those
first responders too.
Right.
I mean,
the police officers, the firefighters come and share their stories with us, where they came from, how they got there, and some of the most interesting things we've ever seen in life. Plus, you get to hear just perspective other than what you hear every day, right?
Yeah.
That's the best part is you learn from other angles and other generations too.
Yeah.
And so, even amongst veterans, even between veterans from different wars, it's a whole different mentality through each where they were at, what they were pushed to do, what the mission was at the time, and it's really interesting to see the different perspectives, especially how they were treated when they came back and what the thought was about the country. So that's one of the best parts of getting out there is that.
Yeah.
What makes it interesting, makes it fun to go out there every day and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially hearing stories from, the greatest generation from World War II, telling us, the few that are still around, hearing some of their stories, and they talk to us.
Yeah.
Some from the Korean War and some from, a lot from the Vietnam. We get a lot of them come in, tell stories. Even our current situation, getting stories from them, or just, can relate and talk to them, and it's been a great thing.
Yeah. That was my dad's old apartment. Used to be between the two buildings owned by the Midwest Home for, or Midwest Shelter for Homeless Veterans in Wheaton. He was right between them. But like talking to them and hearing all their stories, are like the fact that they did these like they were in these horrible like situations and did all these like amazing things for all of us, but it took like 20 or more years to get like welcomed home, like stuff like that. I don't know. I think there's a lot of gratitude I've been able to get from like them and spending a lot of time with like my great grandparents when I was younger and my grandparents. Like, I'm happy if my great grandpa lived sleeping on dirt floors or traveling between houses in the Great Depression. Like, I am in a very different situation than that, and I'm very thankful for that. And I think that with hearing other perspectives, I think there's a huge amount of like not only empathy you can grow with other people, but a huge amount of gratitude you can grow towards like the world in general. Of like,
well, you won't realize how naive or ignorant you are to other things going on in the world until you get out there from different perspectives. Got to meet one guy who was in I believe it was it Bosnian prison camp?
Yeah, Bosnian prison
Had
camp.
no idea, and this is what in the last 20 years, had no idea that they had concentration camps there. And he started to tell us about how horrible the situation was. And if you'd ask me if concentration camps currently exist, I would say no, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Right? I know in like China there's somewhere, but it's like more like re-education is not. I don't know what the conditions are, but it's not. From I understand, it's like not as horrible as they were during World War II. But this is basically, from what he's relating, they're worse. It was constant torture, and so you don't hear much about it in the news.
90s,
right?
Bosnian War.
Right. It leaves a lot of. So you relieve yourself of a lot of ignorance and naivety when you get to get out there and hear different perspectives from the other side of the world. If you only ever listen to our media and our news and what's going on here, and most other countries report world news, whereas here we tend to report United States news.
Yeah.
Until it affects us. Right?
Yeah, we miss out on a lot of what's going on in the world.
Right. It's and more kids. It's funny. Kids from other continents and countries are more educated about the world than we are here in the United States.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Most kids geographically from this country have a very hard time finding other countries. Most kids in other countries have a very easy time finding understanding.
Yeah.
So it's just that's part of it's part of our own nationalism, right? That we're all about us and number one. So who cares about anyone else?
And that's the best. Or that is a funny thing I've found was that like we are like America's number one, and like there's a lot of amazing things about America, and we've done a lot of amazing things. But there's like we're the number one in like 3 statistics, and they're not the best statistics. We're like number one in incarcerated citizens per capita, defense spending, where it's like more than the last 26 countries combined, and I think like number of adults who believe angels are real or some weird statistic. But it's like we're not like. I think that we have lost a lot of what made us the biggest world leaders for a long time. Of like, I think American people were a lot more inspired at one point than they are now, and a lot more hopeful and almost driven. Of like, I think we aspired to a lot of things that we belittle now.
Well, defense spending, I understand that part.
Yeah.
Could being a veteran, but we need to bring back industry again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trades that are hurting. There's, we need some industrial stuff to get this country back on its feet.
Yeah.
The virus has been a great wake-up call about how much we've turned into a nation of brokers when we used to be a nation of manufacturers.
Yeah.
So basically, we're the middlemen of the world now.
Yeah.
And in a lot of places, we're 2 countries shaking hands away from being out of business.
Yeah.
Right. Once China and Russia can agree that they can do business with each other and don't need us anymore as a throughput,
we're done.
They circumvent us and we're done. Right.
Yeah. And that's actually happening on like a very micro scale in business now. Is that like, if it wasn't 2020, Gumbrel wouldn't exist because you guys would have to have signed a contract with Walgreens or someone to sell your coffee to the public. Like direct to consumer companies, until like the internet, it was way harder to make it as direct to consumer because.
It was definitely hard to reach a larger base of consumers.
Yeah.
That's why when as a kid we grew up doing flea markets and trade shows all over the country.
Yeah.
But traveling, so the hard part was you wouldn't get a lot of the repeat business because they lose connection with you. They see you there on the weekend.
Yeah. Like
you're out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Now you're never out
the
of
following year and they come back around.
Now you're never. You can be never out of sight, out of mind with people who follow you on your social media, right? So now you're always constantly in front of them.
Yeah.
And have a connection to people.
Yeah. You've never been able to like really circumvent a lot of like the major middlemen of business before as effectively, and that's something that like Walgreens, Target, like if you've seen like how much their revenue's gone down, like it's still insane because they're them, but like Fortune 500 companies lost billions of dollars with the creation of the internet because like it was almost like all those Fortune 500 companies came around when TV turned to radio because they were a lot of them were built on that, and with all
Brick
this
and
new-
mortar type
Yeah.
stores.
Well, what's interesting is, so what makes it easy for us is where we can source stuff.
Yeah.
How to get our beans, how to get our bags, get our labels,
Yeah.
get our stuff, make connections to the shows we go do. So
Yeah.
before that was tough to go find. You had to figure out how to go find those connections. It was dial through a phone book, see if you can get somebody at the
Yeah.
company to talk to you, right? They're not going to talk to you because they don't know you or where you're from.
Yeah.
And it was, how big you are. So there wasn't, so because more small businesses are able to start and make connections, now small businesses connect. We can connect to a small supplier
Yeah.
who, before it'd only be a big company who would sell those spare bags. And
Yeah.
we'd be like, you have to buy 100,000. Well, we can't buy 100,000. Well, we can't sell to you.
Yeah.
So you're right. It did open up the market for smaller businesses to start more than ever.
Yeah.
And make it there's a lot easier paths.
Yeah, or
So
like the barrier of entry is less, where
Yes.
that's kind of where, like I was talking about, like possibly in the future, like an agency or something. It's like stuff like that, like is another thing that's never been remotely possible, let alone for someone of like my age. So, like the fact that if you're in poverty level income, you can pick up your phone and make money somehow for like zero entry.
Mm-hmm.
That the ability to kind of like transcend different obstacles is like higher than ever, I think, and it's something that, yeah, it takes a lot of hard work to do that, but it's easier than it was for our grandparents.
Sure.
Sure.
Well, look how many millionaires there are under 25 now.
Yeah.
Because of the internet.
Yeah.
Right. There's some people who have no education, seem to have average intelligence, but somehow become multimillionaires
Yeah.
in a short period of time, in
Yeah.
a matter of a year or two, because of they make videos.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a much more opportunity than
Yeah.
there was. The funny thing is, though, some of that's going to start to devalue
Yeah.
education, which I think the price of tuition for kids now in a
It's
college
ridiculous.
Yeah.
makes no sense anymore.
Yeah, and you're seeing colleges slowly become obsolete with the internet.
Oh, they don't need to pay all those teachers
Well,
a ridiculous amount of
No,
money.
the funny thing was to get it. So as we built this business, you learn more and more that how you always hear the phrase, "Information is power." It is. It's the most powerful thing because what happens is a small business, what used to be tough, was create the barriers to entry is we want to incorporate. We want to understand legally how to do this. The only way to understand is either go to the library, research, read books and books that were written in legalese,
Yeah.
or go get a lawyer for $400 to $500 an hour, who's going to what's a minimum of 10 hours to do this, to do anything, to even talk to you. So you got to put a return down. So where do you come up with the money to do each of these things? How do you go protect and trademark your stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, now you need a lawyer to go through the deal. Now we don't. I can go on the internet. I can go watch videos. I can go learn in a very
Yeah.
short period of time. I have to go travel to a library to try to go read a book after book after book, see if it has information. So I can get all that in a very short
Yeah.
minute. So that information is very powerful because when I go learn it, it saves me $500 an hour doing this.
Yeah.
How do I do this? It saves us a tremendous amount of money and time.
Yeah.
So it's become very powerful.
Yeah.
But if you can learn all that by the internet and don't need to go sit in college for 4 to 6 years
Yeah,
to learn
spend
it.
$250,000. It's like
Right.
that doesn't sound like the worst thing. And I think there are still like there's definitely a place for college, but you're seeing Fortune 100 companies like IBM no longer requires 4-year degrees. Apple doesn't. Microsoft doesn't. Like you don't need a degree to get even an above entry level job.
I want to
there.
see what your talent is.
Yeah.
Well, what you're going to find out is I think colleges and universities will become more technical schools.
Yeah.
They'll be technical in that you want to become a doctor, well, you have to
Yeah.
go do this hands-on experience.
Yeah. You want to be a lawyer.
Right,
or
you want
it's-
to
yeah.
become an engineer, you have to go have this hands-on experience.
Yeah.
So it'll narrow down to the more technical aspects is what it will be. So
Yeah.
so they'll become more technical schools
Yeah.
than what they are now. They'll be more succinct to each
Yeah.
particular profession.
Will they still offer basket weaving?
I hope so.
They gotta do something to help rich kids, dumb kids, rich
Yeah.
people's dumb kids get through school and get
Yeah.
a degree.
But
Isn't that what the liberal arts are for?
Yes.
yeah, or like you can get like degrees in professional golf, and like part of your classes are bartending. So
It's phenomenal.
yeah,
As long as you can get the piece of paper, right? That's what it used to be. The piece of
Yeah.
paper was your
Yeah.
entry.
yeah, and at this point, it's like everyone has one, so it's not. It doesn't mean anything.
I met a lot of people and I don't understand how they got a degree.
Yeah,
I met other really smart people who got tired of it and they're just sophomore, junior, and went off to
Yeah.
do other things. And Some of the smartest
Yeah.
people I know don't have the degree education.
Yeah, where I think there's a lot more factors on the piece of paper as far as like things like passion or things like even knowledge. Like there's a lot of people who are more self-educated or experience or whatever it is. It's like there's a lot you can do without.
Well, you don't need to go to a 4-year college. You can go to a 2-year, get your basics done. There's still
there's
offering a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
stuff like that. Like I'm a big fan of online courses, and
I can't do online.
I think the one thing I do like about it is it's, especially in the area we grew up here, it's where a lot of kids from here actually experience the first bit of diversity and difference and different opinions and different views.
Yeah.
Right in the area we're at in the suburbs here, we always used to call the Tri-Cities here as the dome where we live in because it's very protected. You don't get a whole lot of outside influence here, so I think it's a good way to remove some of that naivety and ignorance to go see other opinions and viewpoints from people in different parts of the world, different parts of the country, see that opinions can differ.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you get so ingrained from where you're at.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have plenty of friends that have gone off to college and got their degrees, great people.
Yeah.
You know, they've done great, wonderful things.
Yeah.
You know, they use their degree for something what they went to school for.
Yeah.
I mean, nurses and a couple lawyers, a lot of nurses.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, in my class, I believe.
I think it's rare that college makes you smarter for most people.
Yeah.
I think they go learn different aspects, but it doesn't make you smarter. So it's only every once in a while. College makes you smart, teaches you how to use your own brain. That's what college should be for. And higher education should be learn how to use your own brain rather than regurgitate information.
Right,
Yeah.
but if colleges now are using as a political platform,
Yeah,
that's a
the
different
amount
story.
of most political ideologies are pushed more heavily on university campuses than anywhere else in the world.
So that's a great thing. So when you look, people were doing massive protests against Ben Shapiro when he come to speak. They started a riot at Berkeley.
Yeah.
So what's funny is Berkeley used to be the haven of free
center,
speech. That was like, if you wanted free speech, that's where you went was Berkeley. And so the funny, I could not believe when people were shutting down and protesting at Berkeley, free speech, that anybody would ever protest against free speech.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing is, one of the quotes I remember is in the Larry Flint movie, I thought was the most brilliant thing ever, is you have to protect the worst example so that everybody else is free.
Yeah.
Right? It's really brave. If you protect me and you say I'm the worst and you protect me, that means you never have to worry. Right? Because if you let it be a subjective opinion about what should be free speech, everybody's opinion is different. I could decide tomorrow that, it's my opinion that matters, and I don't think anybody should ever be allowed to talk about atheism or agnosticism. So now I'm going to make that illegal. So now then you think, well, that's crazy. That's not harmful to anybody. But that you can't let that ever be a decision. So protect the very worst. Everybody else gets to be free and have free speech.
Yeah.
And so to see that, to ever think that people would protest against free speech to me blows my mind.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think,
another scary thing.
Right. It's very scary that people let that go, and people are like, I'm okay to give up free speech to not have this person come talk. To ever flex on one of your constitutional rights, I think is crazy.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of the Second Amendment too, is people are willing to give that up and hand it over without understanding what the true impact is.
Yeah, and I've never heard a single idea on how to take guns away from the people who have them that are killing people, just the people who are doing the right thing. Like,
I think it's more reactionary than well thought.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I'm doing something. Just like everybody who went and hoarded toilet paper. Have no idea why. Coronavirus doesn't cause you to need more toilet paper, but everybody else is hoarding toilet paper, so I'm going to go hoard toilet paper. Now it makes me feel better because I feel like I'm prepared for this.
Yeah.
I'll hoard food because now I feel like I did something.
Yeah.
It's reactionary that you feel like you did something, so you can't say that nobody can say you did nothing.
Yeah.
So it's trying to remove your own liabilities and own embarrassment rather than what's best for everybody, what protects everybody.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good spot for the
Yeah,
first
well, everybody, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Sal.
Anytime.
Yeah,
Brian.
come back next week. I'm Derek.
And
Come back next week. We'll have some more coffee and bullshit to talk about.
Yeah.
Yep, coffee.